CEO of the tour operator, Stockton Rush, is one of those on board, as well as British explorer Hamish Harding, French Navy diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman.
The world is watching a race against the clock to find that missing submersible that vanished on a dive to the wreck of the Titanic. Tonight, a glimmer of hope. The U.S. Coast Guard says a Canadian aircraft detected underwater noises in the search area. The team working around the clock. 5 people inside that sub. Their oxygen supply is going to run out.
In our power to effect a rescue.
These are the last images of the group as they prepared to dive Sunday. What was supposed to be an 8 to 10 hour round trip journey to view the wreckage of the Titanic, turning into days of search and rescue above and below the water. The U.S. Coast Guard scouring an area twice as large as the state of Connecticut. Planes dropping sonar buoys into the ocean to listen for sounds from the sub.
Our crews are working around the clock to ensure that we are doing everything possible to locate the Titan and the 5 crew members. Yesterday, we stood up a unified command. This is a complex search effort which requires multiple agencies with subject matter expertise and specialized equipment.
The sub is thought to have enough oxygen to last until Thursday morning local.
Commercial pipeline ship now using a remote-controlled camera to scour deep underwater. The missing capsule could be as far down as the Titanic itself. Nearly 2.5 miles. The crew's air supply expected to run out by Thursday morning.
Submersible with 5 on board in the North Atlantic appeared to be making some progress. An explorers group affiliated with 2 of the missing people say that crews have detected, quote, likely signs of life in the search area. But it is feared that the craft, which was taking tourists to the wreck of the Titanic, could be almost 4 kilometers underwater off of the coast of Canada. Aircraft using sonar have been trying to pinpoint its location, and a submarine team is hoping to attempt a rescue.
The sub was, quote, obscenely safe.
I think it was General MacArthur said, you're remembered for the rules you break. And, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
Some form of regulation. I mean, if you look at the submarine services around the world, each of them is regulated by their own nation. And if I look at the Royal Navy and the submarine service within the Royal Navy, there's huge amounts of regulation because these are exceptionally complex pieces of kit.
OceanGate's boss, Stockton Rush, responded by saying expensive regulation delays innovation. A year later, he said the sub was, quote, obscenely safe. He wasn't just warned about structural safety. The industry body told OceanGate's boss 5 years ago that ignoring normal submarine regulation was plain dangerous. 36 industry experts wrote to OceanGate. The letter said the company's mission to take tourists to the Titanic must only happen with third-party industry regulation. In short, they begged them, please do what every other submarine company does. Nobody's ever attempted such a rescue at anywhere close to this ocean depth. But forget rescue. Nobody knows where the OceanGate Titan even is. Canadian search aircraft picked up a banging sound yesterday and this morning. That sparked a wave of global straw clutching.
When you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do.
We're just running out of time. I'm sorry to say that, and I don't want to portend any imminent catastrophes. But I think we're all scared about the way this is moving.
With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are, to be frank with you. The P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water.
But Ryan Ramsey, a former Royal Navy submarine captain, regretfully concludes this news does not progress anything very far. The American TV journalist David Pogue visited the sub and was, well, surprised.
Wow. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on! You get there, and then you start seeing this stuff, and now your mood crashes, and you get a little worried. Like, is this the level of polish and sophistication we're talking about?
He personally witnessed safety failings on his trip.
You are bolted in from the outside. There are 18 bolts in a circle around the hatch. And by the way, they only fasten 17 of them. The 18th one is way up high, and they say there's really no mathematical difference.
Other alleged safety failings are far more serious. Company whistleblower David Lockridge says he was sacked after demanding more testing of the submersible 5 years ago.
Used to now with GPS and Wi-Fi and radio links do not work under the ocean. And then, the pressure's just immense.
Court documents reveal allegations of serious safety problems. First, the carbon fiber used had prevalent flaws and visible flaws in samples for the Titan. He again stressed the potential danger to passengers as the submersible reached extreme depths. The constant pressure cycling weakens existing flaws, resulting in large tears of the carbon. He begged the company to do more testing. Second, the viewport or porthole problem. He alleges the company's own engineering department found the viewport at the forward end was only built to a certified pressure of 1,300 meters, although OceanGate intended to take passengers down to depths of 4,000 meters.
It wasn't banging, but they're not clear what it was. They moved resources. They moved ships that were on the surface to the area where they thought the banging was coming from. They put remote operated vehicles down to the area, hoping to find the submersible, but they did not. So now they're putting more resources on it. They have several Coast Guard ships, Canadian Coast Guard ships, that do side sonar, which means they can basically map the bottom of the ocean looking for a visual signature of the submersible.
Tom, what are you learning?
Well, hi, Kate. As the hours tick down, the questions are coming up more and more about how this reached this point, specifically how this submersible was developed. You mentioned the employees there. An industry group also jumped in, and there was a letter that was found by the New York Times from them in which they said about what was happening at OceanGate. Our apprehension is that the current experimental approach adopted by OceanGate in developing this craft could result in negative outcomes from minor to catastrophic that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry. And it went on to say your marketing material advertises that the Titan design will meet or exceed the DNV GL safety standards. These were standards developed a long time ago for this type of vessel. Yet it does not appear that OceanGate has the intention of following these class rules. Your representation is at minimum misleading to the public and breaches an industry-wide professional code of conduct we all endeavor to uphold. Simply put, Kate, years ago, there were people in the company and outside the company saying your approach to developing this craft is too experimental, too outside the norms, and is not being submitted to the standards that worldwide maritime organizations expect.
91, and on that dive, we made 17 dives to the Titanic. I co-led the expedition. We made 17 dives. We did the science. And on the last dive, I climbed into the sub with the chief pilot, and we went down to the Titanic and landed on the floor of the pilot house and spent some time reflecting about what we'd done and what we'd seen, and having a moment of respect for the ocean and for the Titanic accident. And as we were about to leave, the pilot pushed up the put on the thrusters. Up we went and stopped about a meter above the floor. Oof. And then he put it back down. So he found out very quickly that we were stuck. And so wisely, because he was an excellent pilot, called in the second sub. And they came in, the two pilots talked about what the situation was, and we had the pilot had slid his left side skid underneath the sub. When he landed, the skid went under some telephone wire. And so with the help of second sub and conversations between the two, we moved up and down and backwards, and were able to kind of tiptoe out of that pretty tense situation. But again, it was great coordination, great pilots, great submarines.
Just thinking about...
Well, I can't say, I can only imagine, like the rest of us, what they're feeling. It is a very confined space, the subs that we use, and so you get used to that. But for these folks who are doing this for the first time, it must be red line moments for them. But the news is that PH is with them. PH Nargilé is one of the members of the team, and you couldn't have a better person with you in a situation like this than PH, who's made 35 dives to the Titanic, who is calm under pressure. The best kind of leadership will be coming from PH. He will be calm, quiet, and doing all the right things to conserve energy, to conserve oxygen, and to conserve psychological, emotional energy as well.
Because that expends more oxygen as well. If you start to hyperventilate or you start to freak out. Dr. McGinnis, can you talk to me about how significant the sound that sonar has picked up? There has been every half an hour, for about 4 hours, a banging sound is how it has been described. Is that something that you're trained to do, to try to make sound so that someone might find you? Or does that tell you that this is definitely human activity or something else?
Well, as your previous guest mentioned, it's an indication, possibly, of human activity that is coordinated. And again, this is the kind of thing that we would hope. We're all engaged in this kind of collective imagination of what's going on down there, and we're beset with fear and sadness and hope and uncertainty. But these sounds have given us a sense of hope, and let's hope that we can solve this problem before the oxygen runs out. We haven't got much time left.
You're remembered for the rules you break, and I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium. There's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
4 years on, Stockton Rush is one of the 5 men trapped in that submarine, out there, somewhere.